Cannot even believe it. Not even certain what to say about it, right? Thinking about it, not certain exactly what to say about it. But right-wing hysteria. Joseph Paul Watson, Stephan Moleneux, Alex Jones, and the dude from Retardville, Lauren Southern. All this bullshit about how left wing is dead. Dead. I tell you, like thinking critically is something the left wing was never good at because they were always about minds control, right? Like reading, right? Like reading a lot, right? Like reading stuff, like reading books. Not just like jumping off the edge of your mind in imagination land. Not that one can't do that. I'm just saying. The right wing, pretty full of shit. I would have to say. I would have to say that. I believe that. And I think Stephan Moleneux is. I think he defood his mom. I think he controls his wife. I speculate here. I think Joe Rogan should have them both on and then ask her about what he does in the marriage and what was bullshit and not bullshit. Because, boy, here he is propagating all of this bullshit, right? This racism, horse shit, right? Now, I'm sorry, but I don't believe in IQ tests as being a static representation of one's biology. I simply don't. I think they're much more dynamic. I think if you stress people out, put them in war, and then do an IQ test. Do an IQ test after war. Do an IQ test on a different diet at a different time. I mean, think about it. Asians are said, even by Stephan Moleneux, in his intelligence shit, right? Sorry, I'm outside, right? But they see shapes, except for Koreans. I mean, even Koreans see shapes. But theirs are phonic oriented. We're like Chinese, Cantonese, Mandarin, Thai. These things, these Asians, they're seeing a different number of alphabet. They're seeing symbolic visual graphemes, different than phonemes. And their alphabet was what, 300, 200? They might use like a shitload more of their alphabet than people in the West using theirs. Right, where black people like just to identify with their group because these guys are all like pumping white nationalism or a group just by the distinction. The intelligent distinctions. Right? And it's bullshit. And that's what I think. I think it's a bunch of fucking bullshit. And I think that the bell curve's been overread, and Stephen Jay Gould's Mismeasure of Man has been underread. Think about this. Asians might be more intelligent because they have more symbols in their alphabet, and their symbols, they're not like A and B graphemes in our alphabet that represent a signified, and that signified within our minds means ba, si, de, get, you know. And then Korean is an exact phoneme, right? You can't get a spelling bee problem in Korean, right? And so I'm just saying, like, perhaps the IQ gap is actually culture's relationship to generally their native tongue. I mean, Indo-European countries have general alphabets, right? And I'm not going to say necessarily, I don't believe the shape of the words per se. I mean, there's so many fonts out there per se. I don't think the shape of the words in the West is affecting the phoneme, right? How we speak. And so maybe this is what puts English speakers into this class. But then within English, you still get these fucking Stephan Moleneux butt fucks, these fucking people trying to segment people just based on stats, and then the stipulation, the full carte blanche dogmatarian bullshit towards biology instead of epigenetics, instead of the idea that chemicals can regrow neurons, that things are out there, and they've been out there for a little while, technologies, chemicals, biology, medicines, and discoveries that show that things might not be as grounded and concrete and universal and static as these right-wing fucks are trying to like level against the population, right? I mean, I watched earlier tonight Alex Jones talk with Stephan Moleneux, right, from last year, and Alex Jones basically said, hey, you know, I'm still treating people, the individual, different, essentially, right? They're individuals. And then he's worried, what's the next left-wing monster? Maybe I'm the next left-wing monster, right? I mean, all of us have a right side and a left side, unless you got it cut off somehow, right? Unless you're missing an arm and a leg on one side. I mean, I was right-handed and left-footed. I mean, what does that make? Am I a lefty? Is my bottom half a lefty and my right half a righty? Maybe. Maybe that's the way I am politically. I mean, this is, like I said, this is bullshit. This left-right wing binary dichotomous ongoing bullshit, like somehow a metaphor that our politics are necessarily like a computer, zeros and ones. But a zero is measuring an absence. It's a time gauge of absence, where the one is a time gauge of electrical presence. I mean, I don't get this. I don't get this stuck on. We have neutral monism. We have third issues. Everything's not Marxism or capitalism. Everything isn't squared against that. There's other economic approaches. There's pre as interest as suffix, interest as prefix. I think it's absolutely absurd. You know what? 1973, game theory goes into the marketplace, right? These right-wingers, they think there's this big old conspiracy. Look, ever since options trading, futures trading, game theory hit the markets worldwide, not just a game of the Federal Reserve, even though the Federal Reserve is by itself very, as we all know, problematic in terms of its, you know, it's not voted on, there's no representations, how the money's used, negative interest rates, debt economies all over the world, fiat economies, and then there's this notion that the blue-collar workers have, that somehow, that if somebody is taking money from the government, that it's an absentee, right? That somewhere along the line, that balance sheet is going to balance, and that means slavery in either a third world economy or slavery by their fellow citizens. Well, I'll tell you what, a lot of these blue-collar people, military, for especially people that don't like to hunt lions and slaughter fucking people and blow their heads off, all the other people that went in so they could raise their kids and get security and be patriotic and horseshit, that's the biggest fucking welfare system there ever was. They're trying to bag on the disabled. They're trying to bag on the poor and the elderly. They're trying to bag on that and then whoop-ha and get all patriotic. And my right to say this even is somehow ingratiated by their committing themselves to the war machine, to the poppy fields. And I'm not saying there's nothing good that comes out of the military. I'm not saying there's nothing good. I'm just saying you guys get schooling, you guys get medical care, and then you have a little shit session on what, oh, well, the veteran affairs and the veterans hospitals aren't doing their job. We're going to fix those. And you fell for the whole Donald Trump bullshit, right? Well, still, people raise their whole families on it because they didn't know how to get along in the capitalist system, but they're there defending it. And then a lot of these fuckers are capitalists. They're all right-wing. Well, we went to defend it. We watched the poppy fields. We gave some people some this and that. We allowed the drones to go in. We blew up this and that. We protected this and that. We overthrew this and that. We destabilized this and that. We guarded the poppy fields. We invaded. And now the bait and switch, the big Donald Trump bait and switch, right, is, hey, I really think that people like Germany and North Korea really need to start paying their share of fare. Otherwise, we're just out. Oh, really? Oh, really? Are you out? Are we out? If South Korea's like, fuck you, I'm not going to pay for you to have this goddamn thing. Let North Korea shoot their missiles, assholes. Or we'll build our own. Or get your base off of our country. Same thing with Japan. Get your base off of our country, Donald Trump. We're not going to pay you your extortion tax after you invaded our countries, after you turned our praying Buddhist king and queen and nobility of the East into business suit wearing capitalists with a bomb, and totally infiltrated the East and the Orient with your Occidental horseshit. No. And there's a history. All I'm saying is the left is nuanced. Go talk to people. Like, a lot of people don't want to get online and start bitching and moaning about what left and right politics is. But just because you're right wing doesn't mean that some tranny isn't going to feel like a woman, or isn't going to feel like some entailed leftover woman that's got some piece of boy attached or some piece of girl attached. Did you guys know that lesbians commit more sexual assault against vegetables than any other demographic of human? It's a fact. Statistical fact. Cucumber lives matter, people. Anyway, so this is just a little bitch session, because I think that Stephan Moleneux should take his wife down to Joe Rogan's studio again. You know, let her take a little pull off the whiskey, a little tug off the pipe, and sit back and watch Stephan, like, defend who he is. Oh, I'm Mr. Ethical, with my little witty jokes and my separations of other individuals and my classifications and just laying down the stats and my presentation of my opinion. Yeah, who doesn't have a fucking opinion? Well, you, Mr. Poopy Pants, laid out your books of ethic, your anarcho, anti-state, anarcho-capitalistic method. Well, you know, there's people like Amendem online. Maybe I'll link him, right? He thinks that you're having your daughter, Stephan Moleneux, is a type of unethic, right? The Benatarian don't bring kids into existence. So you can be all flat-footed with your attitude on this, and believe for whatever reason that you having your daughter at this late age, and then what? The Bible when she's really young, if that's the thing, and then like defooing your mom away from the family, and then lying about your wife's activity. I mean, I bet secretly if we could film on Moleneux's wife, she probably has like 3 dozen sock accounts that she'll downvote his videos, and then he'll find out about it and rail against her, and then she'll, like, in a guilty another can interview, she'll go and upvote him. Like, oh my God, my husband's on to me. And, well, dear, I've got the largest philosophy show in the world, so I am the emblematic beacon of reason and ration and the way that the world should work, right? Organisms are much more varied, especially the ones that sit in their own body, right? I mean, and he's an atheist. Shit, I'm a theist now. Not in any traditional, necessarily orthodox sense, per se. But it's just really weird to watch him defend Christendom of the West, right? As somehow the orthodox outline and definition of what the trending rule system is that the West must and should follow. It's absolutely bullshit. And it's perpetuated. Now, granted, okay, so they got their point. Oh, Muslim ideology, this and that. Paul Joseph Watson. Alex Jones. Yeah, Alex Jones brought it more down to the individual as far as what I could say, but nevertheless, it's still like he baits for his, like, please give me another token black guy to remind me of Jamar, this other, like, raised by white people black guy that I almost got on as my token conversation piece, right? My token conversation piece. So we can bring more color and diversity to prove that I'm not racist and that's not a craze. I'm just simply against the effacement of Americana as he understands it, right? For some reason, he thinks that back in 1800, right? He thinks that at 1800 and today, that somehow his roots are masculine and outback, and that he's bonded, and that he could possibly at all relate or live with his great grandparents or great great grandparents at that time, right? Without flipping out, without being the Alex Jones that we all know today. Obviously, he's narcissistic. Obviously, he's got his problems. Anyway, so my point though is that the right wing thinks that the left is dead. They do. Duh. That'd be like a bird, like getting one of its wings cut off, right? If the left is representing, like if they defame the left, I don't know, put it this way. It's a trade-off between the orthodoxy that outlines the grammar and the content of what's being said, right? And this oscillates. And what I mean by this is maybe there's some old Christendom rule of politeness and civility that is the outline of how our civilization works. And then the content within that is framed by those value systems. So you don't get people like walking around on all fours, barking at the moon naked, trying to piss on your shrubbery out front, right? You don't get that too often, right? Even though the right might accuse the left of going wacko like that. But anyway, my point is that there's a general outline of human behavior. This idea, right? This almost obscene idea that somehow a religious outline like Islam, that is also a political ideology, that tells you not only the content that you should focus on, but the outline and the value system that houses the content, right? Within the left-right paradigm in America, within the Christendom, the left Democrats, at least, I mean, I know there's right-leaning Democrats and left-leaning conservatives or Republicans, but this whole idea that somehow that Democrats are the party of slavery way back then translates into what the unions did as a collective group, right? As white nationalists, mostly on the right, formulate their own collective group, the ironies and the hypocrisy of both sides are just going to be fettered out, right? So all the left's doing now is staying quiet. It's basically in kind of a what's their move? What are they saying? Like, what are they accusing our individual souls of that happen to identify with this group? Whether it's fucking Antifa, the Democratic Party, their local precinct, the idea that they want a 40-hour work week, 8-hour days, no child labor. They want stairwells and fire shit, like shit that unions did. They'll probably say, oh, well, you know, the people that were really started the unions, if I was Paul Joseph Watson, would really be Republicans. So, yeah, they would be on the right, Mark? You know, instead of throwing some thug life bullshit out there. Right? Like like on Al Capone. Al Capone. No, thug life. You know. Anyway. I don't know. I gotta put stuff in the fridge. I just wanted to bitch for a little while because I just watched this new Stephan Moleneux video, and he's basically, you know, trying to really rear back and say what it is that makes you know, statistically a stable adult. He wants to define actual capacity and artifact. He wants to say humanity's real point with this 19-year-old. I'll try to link the video, right? I think, what did he call it? Like the worst thing you could do or something. Anyway, some 19-year-old. And basically he's suggesting that youthful promiscuity could ruin one's life. And I mean, he has a point in saying that. The people that come to their adulthood are coming to their own individual adulthood. Sure, give advice. Sure, say it. You know, calls it as you see it, Stephan. But the idea that a single mother or a single father or families that get divorced, right, are destined for a type of soulful and personal and individual sabotage and a decentering and dislocation of their center core, where they normally balance themselves, their solidity within a location. to promote this idea that it's irrecoverable, right? I mean, maybe it is for a naive generation, but maybe the idea that this next generation is oh so naive is the naive point of view, playing this authoritarian horseshit that you do. I've got the most this and that and this and that, and then there's that dude Hunter or something with Retardville, Joseph Watson and Laura Southern and the info warriors. Why you doing this, you lefty? Why you doing that? Like, come on, articulate it. As if some things don't go without saying. I mean, what about the phrase, some things go without saying? I mean, what does that mean? Hey, please tell us this. And they're like, sorry, that kind of goes without saying. It kind of, I've already summed you up. If you're wanting me to speak on what goes without saying, then you're having me speak about what I agree is the outlining value or orthodoxy of my opinion. Well, in the United States, A, you don't have to hold one. B, if you do, you don't have to speak on it. If you did want to speak on it, you don't have to do it in any particular manner. You don't have to size up and square up and follow their rules of discussion, because perhaps you understood something like you were being hit by a Gaussian blur from a shotgun, and not all the BBs hit you, right? But you still felt not that you got hit, but the pattern in which you got hit. And perhaps it's a little bit more difficult to articulate the difference between me and an Italian, especially when I'm wearing a nice fucking Italian train. Oh! Ba-da-ba. And I live in Mexico, right? Like, the idea of who is in your in-group and who is in your out-group is mostly a fear factor, right? A lot of the right wing is propped up on fear and their progenitors of fear. And I think what I was going to get at with Alex Jones is that what he said was, look, really, there are so few incidences that get highlighted and exploded all over media that they trend almost as a definition of what people think is really going on in this world. Like, if crime has overall gone down in the last 15 years, then is it really that we put knee pads and bike helmets on kids and we don't let them go anywhere, or they have to text the parent every 20 minutes, or some weirdism that is like a tethered leash, a security blanket to the youth, right? Is this idea not an inverse relationship? Crime has gone down and people are more protective, and then isn't there a neurosis that follows from this protectionistic racket? And doesn't this protectionistic racket itself extend to some new notion of what it's actually like to move through your real public, to walk through the streets of your neighborhood and your community? Like, is it really dangerous? Can little kids walk to the store by themselves? Can they go, or do you have to live in Alaska or Montana? Can you be anywhere in the States? Are Canadians really cued in U.S. politics, or are they just like talking their shit because somehow they got their colonial Queensland? Oh, I lived in England and then I moved up to Canada and I sold the business up there that was computer. They really think that Queenie people in Queensland and royalty shit have anything to do with the American founding fathers and the gun debate. They really think what's going on in France is going to be echoed in a country where we have guns, right? So what do? Well, they put this big blow smoke up your ass that your guns are going to be taken away or shit, right? So everything is just this eked out, ongoing, propagated propaganda from any individual from here to there. It seems absurd. It's like a bulwark. It's like a wall. It's like a dam being put up. And meanwhile, they're saying, oh, the left is dead. They're moronic. That just means they're not out talking to people. They're not changing the voting bloc. It's not necessarily immigrants that think this. It's people that identify the real individuals as other people and not as, oh, that's a Mexican person, and oh, that's a black person. Oh, that dude doesn't speak my language or appears not to. Or, oh, how standoffish. Or, oh, they're from South Africa or New Guinea or Nigeria or Tonga. Or they're from Ireland or they're from fucking Texas. Yeah. All I know is people out of the country. They don't know what kind of experiments the government of the U.S. does on its population. This isn't worldwide shit. Every country has its own suppression, right? So now seemingly we allowed it. We allowed our government to confiscate the power, and that we all buy into this, and that my voice is recorded, my face, my recognition, my history, and probably metadata files about my content, the usefulness perhaps of my content, and our genetic history collected by the government, by Monsanto's, by everything, such that everything is transparent. My shopping list is. My activities are. Shit, I bet my phone even has a sense of smell on it. You think? Anyway, I don't want to ramble too long, because what's this all about? It's about the right-wing hysteria. That's what this is about. All these right-wingers sit there and they insist that somehow a youthful generation getting into their 20s, like this Hunter dude that has this retardville bullshit, right? He said, and just to contrast, like the amazing atheist, with all of his babble and all of his bullshit, yeah, at one point he had a thread of a philosophy that seemed kind of nice and kind of grounded, but as an intellectual, he's not very proactive on learning a new vocabulary or being open to even changing his mind, right? I mean, when you take someone like Ann Coulter or Mila Yiannopoulos, as opposed to Emily Shamalama Ding Dong's movies, right? But if you take the right wing pundits, you know, there's something nice that they're willing to say things, but it's like petting chainmail, right? It's like petting an armadillo instead of a cat, right? Grant, look, here's your point, here's your shell. It's defensive for you. You would like us to align with your position, and that's really great and all. Have your defensive position, little Miss Potato Bug, little Miss Joseph Gay Dude Armadillo. I mean, not even about your choice there, but to what extent are the values? I mean, Ann Coulter doesn't have kids. Paul Joseph Watton's gay. Stephan Moleneux porked out one, defends it, tries to be intellectual, and then say that the purpose of life is to have kids. Alex Jones, 3 kid, babble, bob-a-da-bee bob, boom-ba-da-bing, bang, 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 say anything. Try to hang around people now to like give an outline of what his ricocheted thoughts are. Plus, you got millions and millions and millions and millions of people talking to one another in different groups about games or movies or philosophies or this or that or fashion, okay, anything. And then in the Middle East, if you go to like Google or Facebook and you look for their live hangs all around the world thing, and you go over into Mecca and you see the hundreds and hundreds of thousands of Muslims grouping, moving in one way and not in others with their point of view. Obviously, this carefree, open, liberal freedom, the liberal freedom of being a capitalist, runs Muslims roughshod because it has interests different than their Quran does, right? So perhaps this is the Stephan Moleneux capitalist push. It's just that he doesn't want to change the regular Zionistic European interest rates. As a matter of fact, he wants to get rid of the state, co-opt the state with some sort of, I don't know, like what is it? I don't even know what he calls them. These little, he'll call them non-mob groups. Obviously, they're the mob groups, right? Dispute organization centers that could easily be bought off, but the whole point is why not just a grand network that doesn't even require those groups? Well, because there's always the antagonists, right? There's always somebody to come stir the shit. Anyway, I don't mean, because it's possible, right? Like Soros, right? He says, hey, like, look, ever since game theory came out, the game of investment is immoral. It's amoral, right? And he's just like Donald Trump. He's just, and yet the right hates him. Let me crash a few economies. Let me try to rattle some things up with my money that I earned based on the rules that were already set. He's there to stir it up so the next generation recognize it, outlines it, solidifies it, and regulates it, right? But in the meantime, he's just going to scrape his little cream off the top, do his thing, and now Donald Trump's in. And whether or not we righties know it or not, since Stanley Fischer and Janet Yellen and Netanyahu all have the inside scoop of Kushner, and Stanley Fischer is the deputy of the Federal Reserve, and he's a co-citizen with Israel, and all of those up there running the Federal Reserve are Jewish. You can call me anti-Semitic just for mentioning it. Well, I don't mind that, right? You can call me that. I'm not. I'm just saying it certainly happens to be that our little client state, Israel, has its hands as at least the controllers of where the funds are going, right? So hopefully there's some alien black book programs or some super thing that needs to be funded, like a Men in Black program in the background for all the weird shit that's actually out there that's really important instead of this stupid political shit. I'm not saying it's stupid to be like, hey, don't worry about other people's outlines in politics and religion. I'm just saying, like, if you hang out with Mormons, like they'll throw fucking niceties and blow smoke up your ass, and meanwhile they want you to pay them money while they do what they think is ethical, not break the law per se, but try to trade off the market, right? They're huge money traders, right? They're huge business people. They're huge Adam Smith, Joseph Smith, Adam Smith economy, Joseph Smith, Christendom. Make the Lamanites or the lessers, like, help them out, but make certain you profit on them. Promote yourself. Have shitloads of kids. They're not antinatalists. Anyway, so hearing their line of bullshit and being really close to it, even if it worked for them, hence not making it bullshit, doesn't mean that the people who Mormonism didn't work for, that did well, that their outline wasn't successful, wasn't positive, right? So anyway, my point though is that any organism, right, that happens to exist, that happens to be language speaking, that we would identify at least as human in some capacity, maybe they're part reptilian or maybe they're part Venezuelan, whatever, right? Like the way people want to scale other organisms and accuse a whole group of individuals that happen to maybe have a voting record and an inkling towards some political ideology that maybe is not nostalgic by a few hundred years, but maybe is much more immediate, that perhaps is self-serving or maybe not. Maybe they're naive and they're just going with the flow. In any case, those individuals are not necessarily less informed or more naive than the average person. They may not give a shit about the talking heads that are trying to, like, oh, we're so much more powerful than the mainstream news or the lamestream news, and more people are paying attention to internet shit than ever before, right? Anyway, all I know is the binary, the dichotomy, the dead donkey of the left, and the old faithful memorizing, pentagram holding Republican elephant that knows everything. Boy, it's just coming in. And put those commie leftists, those nuanced thinkers that don't quite know how to articulate their position in the manner that we would like to rationally have our ping pong table set up. You know, the rules of debate, the proper rules of debate. Not just yelling Allah Akbar, oh, blessed is our God at every moment within a discussion. but a real reduction down to the logics and the binaries and logic, such the contradiction, dialeotheism, paradox, irony, and hypocrisy on a sliding scale are somehow just overlooked, as if the mind's eye of reason has no blind spot. Duh. We're humans. We're visceral. We're blood pumping, right? Everything isn't just ideas. And yet at the same time, that's the irony of Stephan Moleneux. Like, hey, listen to all of my really great ideas. Like, listen to them. But then when he talks to this young lady, like, you could have screwed up your life, and really the only reason you're here is to have babies. I had one at this age, and I'm a great dad. Dink. Anyway, so thanks for your time. Thanks for listening to part of my ramble. I wish I would drop this. I think what I'll do, maybe next time, I'll drop my link in there and bring some people in to kind of comb it over. I just had to do like my little Rubin report, my Trader Rubin report dialogue, where I do my little intro beforehand, my Mari Povich. Let me tell you my outlook on things first, and then here are my guests. Well, in any case, I don't know how long I've been going for. I just wanted to rant that A, the left is not dead or dying. B, the left is into some nefarious shit. Duh. The right is into some nefarious shit, trying to fool itself into thinking it's got the virtue of some pioneer cowboy grazing land herder that goes to Oregon and then gets shot. Right? I mean, I'm just saying. I mean. The differences of people's differences are so varied that even this idea of having a mascot, like these people that are getting some traction, right? Like, it's interesting to listen to them. Don't get me wrong. They're interesting. People are interesting. I just think people are interesting. But it's their hawkish, self-righteous, this is the way it is, and I'm going to back it up with stats, horseshit, trying to divvy up the differences of people. And then on the left, they're just talking about intersectionalities, right? They're just talking about the differences and what the differences are in terms of how we generally define one another, and saying, oh yeah, this group seems to be more marginalized, and this one seems to be more in this field. And meanwhile, while the internet's trying to even it out, hopefully we have more egalitarian voices. We just get more voices of people, all different people that are still flooding the airwaves. And then maybe we can all have the popular vote on our cell phones and link it to Ethereum blockchain or somehow solidify it. And then maybe use Monero blockchain to encrypt it. So we can never find out. So the NSA can never find out what is up with your voting. But I'm afraid we've given up all information. So our genetic codes, all of our words, all of our tones, our likes, our dislikes, blah, 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 are all recorded. And so in one way, we've already lost. And ladies and gentlemen, we've already won, regardless of who you follow politically. This is Bud Aldrin. Make certain you like, subscribe, and share, and you follow me on Patreon. That's right. Don't just send me money on Patreon. Follow me. Okay. Wait. Huh? Okay.